because we felt that that was what was needed to bring up the carryover stock so that the prices would not be too high.
But that is the reason why we need to inspect SO number 3's remaining balance of sugar. So we know how much sugar is still in the bodegas that have not been shipped out. I think it is to the miller's advantage that the imported sugar is distributed to the industrial users as soon as possible. Is that correct? You're a miller.
Let me
Yes.
correct it. The imported sugar that was brought in is already owned by the industrials. When they want to use it is not our concern, right?
But I'd like to put on record in our previous meeting,
Yes.
when we asked Coca-Cola, wala naman silang natatanggap. That is exactly the reason why we're having this meeting, is also because are we allowing importation given to particular importers that are not going towards their intended user or demand, or the intended demand user. And it happens. I mean, we've noticed that there's a lot of pole vaulting that is happening, and because of the high prices, it's one of the reasons why we're trying to figure out if they're pole vaulting and not selling to the intended user and actually selling to the local market at almost double the price.
Mr. Senate President, when we were consulted about the importation, we only base our recommendations based on things like the production bulletin. We look at the overall picture. It's a very difficult task even for SRA on how to allocate any,
Yes, but-
any imported sugar.
But to hasten, because I only have a limited time frame, Tito Pabs, I call him Tito Pabs. So you see me in short pants. Your honors, I grew up in their farm, Bukidnon. But you agree with me that it is possible. I mean,
What is possible?
that there are importers that import and do not deliver to the intended beneficiary. It is possible.
I
In
don't
the
think
realm
so.
of possibilities.
Well, I think you saw some leaks of imported sugar that ended up in bodegas where they were not supposed to be.
Correct.
But those were just in the hundreds of bags,
No,
right?
these are-
But in general, if you're talking about SO3, whoever imported is gonna keep it for himself. He's not gonna let anybody else get it.
No, because the problem is we give the allocation to the importer. We're trying to find a way also, our system, through this committee, where we can recommend to the SRA a better system, and which I mentioned in Malacanang, and the President also mentioned that he would like that the SRA issue the permit for large-scale industrial users and let the large-scale industrial user find the importer. So that way, silang dalawa na lang nag-usap, wala nang intergovernment, wala nang government intervention. That is also a possibility. Like if Coca-Cola needs 50,000 metric tons, then issue them a permit, kao na bahala, you bring in 50,000 tons. And it's already direct importation on their part, so that there's no more tongpats, there's no more talk about traders
I agree.
coming to the
I am
SRA.
not against industrial users importing directly.
Yeah, therefore, that is part of the discussion that we're looking at here. Baka mas maganda nga na we come up with reforms in the industry. And
The PSMA would like to participate when there are any consultations.
yes. Kasi let's also put it on record. Some PSMA members also are importers. Is that correct?
Yes, even I participated during the replenishment program.
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
let me explain. We were only importing what we exported. We exported to the US and we imported only the same amount back in. We don't, I personally do not like to deal with industrial users only because they take long to pay.
Yeah, but
I'd rather get paid in cash. I don't want to wait 90 days, 120 days.
yes, but that's why that was where the predicament is, diba? The millers are also sometimes importers and traders themselves. Eventually, what happens, Your Honor?
There is nothing really wrong.
There's
I mean,
nothing wrong.
Everything is
Correct.
above the table. I mean,
Unless the intended
Above
user does not receive the sugar. Right? Unless instead of being given to Coca-Cola, it's held in a bodega somewhere, 10% of the volume imported. Let's say you bring in 1 million sacks, but 100,000 sacks you pole vault to another bodega and you sell later at a higher price. It happens. I've been too long in this industry to know that that doesn't happen. And that is what we're trying to prevent. If we really want to help the sugar farmers, we must get rid of these leakages and loopholes which are detrimental to the farmer. Now, I'm glad that there are producers here that can answer. What is the farm gate cost of raw sugar before the milling ended? Of course, it's artificially high now because there's no sugar, but let us put it at last May, before we ended the milling season in Bukidnon and in Negros. What was the farm gate price for farmer per kilo? Was it around maybe 45, 40 to 50 pesos per kilo of raw sugar?
I remember sometime in May when we ended, the last price we were paying was something like 2,300 per 50 kilo bag.
So 2,300 divided by 50 pesos. 1,300 divided by 50 pesos. 46
50
pesos.
46 pesos per kilo.
Okay. How much is the tolling fee when you refine it per kilo? I mean, when you go to a refiner, I know you're not a refiner. I know Busco is the refiner in Bukidnon. When you want to refine raw sugar into refined sugar per kilo, what is the cost? 10 pesos? 15 pesos?
I know that you get a yield of about 92% from 50 kilos, so you only have about 8%.
A rough number. Could you give us a rough number per kilo?
You would have to pay a tolling fee of about approximately 300 pesos at that time.
Per bag?
Per bag.
Okay, 300 pesos per bag. So 300 divided by 50. That's 6 pesos. So 6 pesos plus 46 pesos raw sugar, that's 52 pesos. So, question is, when it is being sold, and alam po ng SRA ito, it is sold at an average, at that time when there was supposedly no sugar shortage, it is being sold at 80 to 90 pesos per kilo in the supermarkets. Correct? At 80 to 90 pesos per kilo, the trader is the one making a killing at almost 30 to 40 pesos per kilo. That is the problem, Your Honors. Ang problema dyan, napakalaki ng kita nitong mga traders na ito pagdating ng asukal sa merkado. Kaya, ipinaglalaban po natin dito ang ating mga magsasaka and sugar farm workers. Kasi, pag magsira ang farm, wala na rin trabaho yung sugar workers, yung mga tapasero, sakada, lahat. Yung mga mill workers, syempre, apektado din sila if they have no sugar to mill. Because the fact of the matter is, when it is no longer feasible or profitable to plant sugar, people will shift. That's a phenomenon in Bukidnon. That's why there's more pineapple, more bananas being planted in Bukidnon. The sugar areas are getting smaller and smaller dahil napakaliit po ng kita ng ating mga magsasaka. They'd rather deal with Dole Philippines, Del Monte Philippines, or whichever, para ma-convert nila yung lupa nila from sugar to banana and pineapple. Kaya yan ang problema ng industriya. We have to make it profitable for the farmers and also profitable, pero wag naman sobrang laki for the traders kasi sila po naghahatid sa merkado nitong asukal na to. So it's a very complicated situation, Your Honors. But the fact of the matter is, the farmers are only selling at the highest ever being sold before the end of the milling at 46 pesos lang farm gate. Di ba po, Your Honors? 46 pesos lang. Eh kung lumalabas na 100 pesos yan na yun, hindi kasalanan ng magsasakayan. Hindi kasalanan nila yan. So, I'd like to ask a report from the BOC. Can we give the committee a report on the amount of sugar that was already inspected? Is it still ongoing, Your Honors? Are you still locating sugar? That is your mandate and you can still do so. Are you still doing so?
Yes, Your Honor. We are presently still in conducting inspections, Your Honor.
And please do so. We have laws that will protect you from doing so, making these inspections. It's always best to err on the side of the law and the farmers. Yan pong utos ng ating Pangulo to make sure na walang hoarding, na walang price manipulation, para sa ganun ay maibaba talaga natin ang presyo ng asukal. And for the record, Your Honors,
Yes,
Mr.
Your
President, for the record, I really laud the efforts of Malacanang in this situation. There are sectors that are trying to portray illicit conspiracies. But the fact of the matter was, they are asking for a plan. What was given instead was a sugar order to import. The president stopped this and called it illegal. And the president wants the farmers to take advantage of his newfound mandate as the secretary para tulungan natin long term ang ating mga magsasaka. That we no longer need to import if it is possible. There are many issues. Mahabang usapin yan. Baka under the committee of Senator Villar, we can discuss how we can increase production and yield of our farmers and make it more profitable to them para hindi sila lilipat sa ibang mga produkto. Ang importante po dito, magkaisa po tayo. All farming or all sugar association federations, I'm making an appeal to them. Because right now, it's a mess kasi nag-aaway-away sila. One is calling one Pinklawan, the other is calling the other mga Marcos loyalists and all that. I think we should stop calling each other names. If you want to help the farmers and the federations, let us come up with the bottom line scenario of helping the industry. Let us help each other help the industry. Other than attacking each other online in the newspapers and calling each other names. I think I'm making that appeal to all our sugar farmers and federations. And I think we can all stand on that. Tigil na muna natin yung away. Let us come up with a better system of importation, a better mechanism for the SRA to say if we really truly need to import so that the farmers will not lose their income and lose, of course, the opportunity to earn a bit of money of their farms and their products. I think that is the most important that we have to, the most important message that I would like to share with everyone in the industry today. Let us stop right now the black propaganda against one federation over another. I think tigil na natin yan. Let us come up with a solution to correct the mistakes of the past on the sugar importations that we have done, if there were any, and come up with a long-term plan to really help not only the farmers but also the millers. For example, let us help Crystal Milling come up with their own refinery instead of tolling to another refinery, or other companies in Negros that have no refineries. In Brazil and in India, all the sugar mills, almost all of them have their own refineries. Para sa ganun, yung raw sugar pwede nang ibenta as bottle-grade refined sugar. Hindi na natin kailangan mag-import. So yun lang po, Mr. Chairman, and I really appreciate the participation of all the sugar stakeholders. I believe Mr. Lobregat would like to be recognized.
Lobregat,
Thank
new
you.
arrivals here, I'd like to recognize the presence of former Speaker of the House, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano.
Very good.
What would be the essence of your additional statement, Mr. Lobregat?
I would just like to agree and support our Senate President for new solutions to all our problems. I would just like to reiterate what I wanted to say in the Congress, which is the big problem that we have today is the weather. If you look at the news today, they say in Spain they are going to produce 50% less olive oil this year. If you remember, Indonesia stopped the export of palm oil for a while because everybody, when push comes to shove, they will keep their production for themselves. And it's very important to discuss the self-sufficiency that the country must try to attain in every crop. I have some proposals that I would like to discuss with you guys in private, but that's for another day. Thank you.
We note that. Thank you, Mr. Lobregat. We recognize likewise the arrival of our Minority Leader, Senator Pimentel. Next to ask question would be...
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
before you recognize somebody, may I be excused from the meeting? You know that Secretary Manalo is coming over this afternoon to meet the members of the Senate and hopefully ask for his help for his Commission on Appointments hearing on Wednesday. May I be excused, sir?
Yes, Your Honor, but can I also be excused in that meeting? because I will be
Yes, Your Honor.
continuing with
Mr.
the
Chairman,
proceedings.
before the Senate President leaves, and I'd like to congratulate him for his privileged speech in bringing this up. Just before this, Senator Padilla brought up a very, very, very good point because SRA is a GOCC. So, ang kailangan ma-appoint dyan from a short list from the GCG. Maybe through the Senate President, we can also make a representation na hindi muna ipapadala ng GCG yung kanilang short list sa Malacanang nang hindi na co-consult yung stakeholders.
Actually, the new appointments were endorsed by several stakeholders. Not all, kasi as I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, the sugar industry is made up of many players, no?
But yun po, sir, ang
Opo.
point ni Senator Padilla,
Yes.
mukhang illegal yung ibang appointment sa ngayon kasi hindi pa nagsasubmit ang GCG ng shortlist. So, panay acting lang sila.
Okay.
Because under the GCG law. So, I'm happy that Malacanang, as a fact, consulted the stakeholders. But wala sa law ng GCG to consult these stakeholders. But baka through your leadership, that's something we can change.
But I'll promise you that each group will give up their own name. each federation and plant association will give their own names. Kaya in the end, the president will eventually have to
Yes.
decide.
But more or less, the job naman ng GCGs, pag binigay nila yung shortlist, ipapakita lang sa association na wala silang, na walang kumbaga may veto power sila.
Oo.
Na wala doon na tulisan, to put it that
Yeah,
way. di ba?
definitely.
Oo.
I totally agree. And we've been doing that. As a matter of fact, that's why they met with the president. The different stakeholders met with the president. And Mr. Lobregat was there in the meeting in Malacanang.
I'm
to
talking in
discuss
general, Mr. Sen. President, kasi like, as we investigated last Congress, di ba? Ang
Yes.
PhilHealth, dumaan lahat ng GCG yan. Pero kita naman natin yung dami ng scam
Oo nga.
sa PhilHealth. Maybe because hindi rin nakonsulta ang mga doctors, nurses association, mga health insurance. So I'm not talking about this administration specifically.
Yes.
But in general, it might be a good idea. So anyway, I'd like to thank Chairman
Thank you
Tolentino
for the
and the
information.
Senate President.
Before the Senate President leaves, can I hold him for 120 seconds till? Part of your privileged speech, Your Honor, has something to do with the two injunctions issued by Negros courts. That's why we have here the presence of the Office of the Solicitor, Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. And part of your speech, Your Honor, has something to do with the functions of the OGCC. Can you give us, in 2 minutes, the gist why the twin injunctions issued by the courts in Negros cannot apply nationwide? Your legal opinion there, OGCC. And your name, please.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po, Mr. Chair. Magandang hapon, Mr. Senate President, and to the members of the committee. I am Manuel F. Santos Jr. of the Office of the Government Corporate Counsel. Yes, Your Honor, the position of the OGCC is that a preliminary injunction issued by an RTC is effective and enforceable only within the territorial boundary of the region where the RTC is located. This is actually based on Section 21 of Batas Pambansa 129 or the Judiciary Reorganization Act of 1980 as amended. Under said Section 9, it provides that regional trial court shall have original jurisdiction in the issuance of writs of mandamus, quo warranto, habeas corpus, and injunctions enforceable within the respective jurisdictions or within the respective regions. So that is the position of the OGCC, that since the RTC, which issued the two regional trial courts which issued the injunction orders are located in Negros Occidental, which in turn is located in Region 6, then the sugar importation activities can proceed outside of that territorial jurisdiction, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I'm not a legal luminary like yourself. I'm kung sa Bisaya, murag abogado ba? Parang abogado lang sa nag-aaral. But in the United States, when a lower court issues an order, it is applied throughout the United States. If there's an injunction on a particular government agency, it basically affects the whole territory. Is there a legal precedence to what you have said, Your Honors, by the Supreme Court?
The legal precedent that we found, Your Honor, is that there is one case involving a judge located in RTC of Marawi, wherein he was penalized by the Supreme Court for issuing a writ of preliminary injunction directing a corporation which is located here in Manila to issue a check to a certain foundation, Your Honor, to a certain organization, Your Honor. So the Supreme Court penalized the judge for issuing a writ of preliminary mandatory injunction outside of his territorial jurisdiction, Your Honor.
So this has not been questioned yet. Has there been a case brought to the Supreme Court or the Court of Appeals on like a particular issue?
No, we are not aware of any case, Your Honor.
So if there's, for example, hypothetically, let's say there's a complaint against PLDT or Smart or Globe, let's say by a consumer in Negros or in Bukidnon, complaining about poor quality or signal or reneging from their commitment to interconnect so and so, and there's a TRO given by the courts in Bukidnon or in Negros or Cebu, it is not applicable throughout the whole country?
Yes, Your Honor. That is the express provision under Section 21 of BP 129, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you for the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. The OGCC, please take note that perhaps there will be contrary and alternative opinions because you were the ones who were enjoined. Your office, and your office has a national jurisdiction. Your office has no limited jurisdiction in Negros. It can be argued that way. Otherwise, you'll be saying that all the regional trial courts in the Philippines should issue an injunction likewise or the Court of Appeals. But what if it is an RTC where the corporate office, headquarters of a sugar plant is located? What would be the implication? So just hold your legal perception there. Senator Pimentel, our top notcher, might have a different opinion. So we'll discuss that during the next meeting. I just want you to express that in the presence of the Senate President. Thank you, Mr. Senate President.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
We have here the presence likewise of, before we ask Senator De La Rosa and Senator Cayetano, we have here the presence of the PITC. Senator Villar, is Senator Villar present now, virtually? Senator Villar, are you present, ma'am? The chairperson of the Senate Committee on Agriculture. If she's not around, you were required to be present today because of some concerns that some funds of the SRA were channeled to your agency. Is that correct? And that you were likewise involved in sugar importation. Just those two questions.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. Yes, there was a fund transfer of SRA in the Philippine International Trading Corporation, but that was in 2019. So I came into PITC just November of 2021. I don't have personal knowledge, but I have seen through the reports that there have been projects of SRA in PITC. But when I came in, only one was not yet paid, but it was all liquidated, dispersed and liquidated by March of 2022, Your Honors.
Can you specify the said projects? We have here the presence of the former SRA administrator.
Can I just check on my...
So there were projects completed and there are still projects pending and there are still amounts lodged in your office. Is that correct?
At this point, Your Honor, no more pending projects with SRA. All has been liquidated, sir, by March of 2022.
And the last one was?
And the last one was implemented before I came in, but I was...
Involving?
Sir, come again, sir?
Involving which project? Procurement? Importation?
Sir, it's a project po of SRA to PITC
Concerning?
concerning harvester, sir.
So that's for the farmers under the SIDA law of 2015.
Opo, sir. Yes,
and the
sir.
amount involved?
The total amount involved for SRA projects with PITC is 494 million, Your Honor.
494 million. That
Yes,
was
sir.
the last one. Can you confirm and affirm that, Administrator Serapika?
Yes, Your Honor.
So everything,
Can I, may I intercede, Chairman? I'm online.
yes. I was speaking on your behalf because we had the lady from PITC waiting here since this morning. We recognize the virtual presence of the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Agriculture, the Honorable Cynthia Villar.
Yeah, I want to manifest that if you are going to do mechanization, you ask PhilMec to do it. Because that's the agency of the government in charge of mechanization. In every law that I pass, it's PhilMec, which is implementing. So I'm just curious why they go to PITC. Oh, because the Department of Agriculture has a mechanization agency that is PhilMec. Oo. So why are the people always going to PITC? Even DNR, when they have a project on establishment of composting facility and plastic recycling facility, they go to PITC. And then it took them 6 years to implement. So I'm just doubting already why they go to PITC. Are there things that, yeah. Why don't you go to PhilMec? Because that's the
SRA?
agency of the Department of Agriculture that is in charge of mechanization.
SRA, can you answer that?
This issue on the farm machineries only happened once, Your Honor, and there was no subsequent procurement undertaking with PITC, Your Honor.
That's not the
Under the
question. The
SIDA law,
question-
you're supposed, Mr. Serapika, under the SIDA law, you're supposed to implement it yearly. There is a budget for that. Under the SIDA law, you failed to implement it. The only time you implemented it is you gave it to PITC.
Any answer, Mr. Serapika? Or would your silence mean that you agree?
This procurement only happened once, Your Honor, and during that time, way back in 2018, there was a MOA that was presented to the Sugar Board for
A
approval.
while ago you mentioned 2015. Now it's 2018.
Sorry, Your Honor.
You mentioned 2015. Now you're saying it's 2018. Which is
2018, Your Honor, not 2015.
But there has been a budget for mechanization since the enactment of the SIDA law, and they are not implementing it. The only time they implemented it is they gave it to PITC. So that's kind of weird. Okay, thank you.
PITC, anything to add? Bakit po kayo lagi ang gusto ng mga government agencies?
Sir, I cannot speak for that, sir, because I only came in 2021 November, Your Honor. So, although in our reports that I have with me here, the fund transfer of SRA to PITC was February of 2019, Your Honor.
So it's not 2018.
Na-
Previously it was 2015, then 2018, now it's 2019.
Sir,
which is
maybe
which?
because there is a MOA, the MOA should come before the fund transfer. So MOA might be in 2018, but the fund transfer came in February of 2019, Your Honor.
And you assume your position 2021.
Yes, sir,
So,
November of 2021, Your
I have
Honor.
no further questions to the lady from PITC. I think Senator De La Rosa next in line. Thereafter, Senator Pimentel. Senator De La Rosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one rejoinder. Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Pablo Lubregat, sir, I've been listening intently to your exchanges between you and Senator Risa Hontiveros, and also between you and the Senate President. And you seem to wield so much authority on what you are saying. So, following your narrative, sir, nasabi mo kanina that there seem to be no hoarding activities happening around because the results of the Bureau of Custom raids or inspections only shows around the 10% or 15% of the inventory of the what is supposed to be the sugar label that we have, a sugar supply label that we are supposed to have at this point in time. So, sir, tanungin ko lang diretso kung following your narratives, kung hindi lang sana naharang ng Malacanang yung sugar order number 4, hindi siguro ganito kataas ang presyo ng sugar ngayon, because if sugar number 4 was materialized and pumasok yung supply ng sugar, so obviously the price should have gone down. So kung hindi yung naharang, okay siguro ang presyo ng sugar ngayon, hindi ganito kataas. Just your opinion, sir. I just would like to ask you on that.
Mayong hapon, sir. Hindi naman sa hinarang ng SO4, no? Like I said, I mentioned that ang hinarang was SO3 first in January. Dapat pumasok yan sa Marso. Kung pumasok yan sa Marso, I think it would have calmed the perception that there was not going to be a deficit or a shortage of available refined sugar, right? What further delayed it, and this is what was in my presentation in Congress, was the elections created paralysis in many government agencies. SRA was hesitant to issue sugar order number 4 because it was sugar order number 3 was still pending at that point. They were scared that pag nag-issue ka ng sugar order number 4, you're already in contempt of court. Right? Hindi pa na-resolve yung sugar order number 3. Right? So there was a delay. Okay? And when the go-ahead was given to come up with sugar order number 4, for me, in my opinion, it was already late. We have passed on to the Senate the same presentation that we gave in the Congress, and we showed this chart here. I don't know if the Secretariat has our position papers and all that, and they can show it. By that time, the sugar was already too high. You're going to have to dampen that price. You can't fight a big fire with a hose. You're going to need a big fire truck to douse that fire, which was the price.
Yes, sir.
But again, this is what I said. This was an inherited problem of the president. He only came in June. This was going on already, right? And so maybe, I said, I have no opinion on the validity, legal validity of whether the signatures were wrong or they did not have the authority to sign. But I reiterate that sugar order number 4 had a valid rationale, which should have been implemented even 2 months before.
Yes, sir. So, yun nga, the reason why, according to Administrator Serapica, parang lumalabas na minadali nila yung sugar order number 4 dahil nakita na nila yung looming situation na talagang nagkakaroon na shortage sa supply. Kaya minadali niya yung pag-drop at saka pagpapapirma ng sugar order number 4. So granting, ito lang, just your opinion. Kung hindi ito, halimbawa, nakita ni President Marcos, ito naman pala, inassume na lang ni Sirapika at ni Yusek Sebastian yung responsibilidad para, kasi nakita nila malaking problema talaga pag yung nga, may problema na tayo sa sugar order number 3 na delayed, kaya nakakaroon ng shortage. In order to remedy the situation, according to Sirapika, minadali nila itong ISO number 4. So kung nakita ni Presidente na ito very laudable itong ginawa ni Sirapika at ni Yusek Sebastian, go na ito para ma-remedy ang situation. Do you think hindi bababa ang presyo ng sugar kung halimbawa, smooth sailing ang ISO number 4. Hindi tayong ganito ngayon kahirap. Walang Coke plantation, Coca-Cola plant na mag-shutdown. Do you think mag-normalize ang situation kung nakalusot yung ISO number 4?
Number one, it would have given a different perception to market forces. It would have given, in other words, uy, may papasok na, so makakahinga, makaka-relax na. Diba? Okay lang. Diba? And then, of course, depends on how fast that sugar could have come in. At that point, probably it was still cheaper or it was still available. Because today, it's difficult to get sugar because Thailand is not milling. They will start milling in January or December, right? If you're going to have to get sugar, if you can get 150,000 tons in, you're going to have to scrape from Thailand, from Indonesia, and probably Malaysia. And if you can't get it there, then you're going to have to go all the way across the Pacific to Brazil and maybe some South American country, which is already out quota, which carries a 45% tariff instead of a 5% tariff within ASEAN. But yes, if it was signed, I think it would have calmed down the market. The guys that had sugar, if you're saying that people were holding sugar, at this point in time, if you have sugar, you're selling your sugar. This is a jackpot. These prices show that last year, the price of refined was 53. Today, we're only marking it at 95, but sometimes it's lower. All these groceries that they're saying that you can buy sugar at 70 pesos, you go to the grocery. If you buy more than 1 kilo, they'll say, no, hindi pwede. You cannot buy more than 1 kilo. Right? What does that show you? There is a shortage.
Thank you, sir. Maraming salamat for that explanation.
Daghang
Mr. Chairman.
salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Salamat.
Can we now have Senator Coco Pimentel, our mathematician?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kunin ko na rin yung balance ni Senator Bato.
We'll have,
Yes, sa'yo na yan
we'll have
lahat.
the balance of Senator Bato and Senator Cayetano.
Thank you. But actually, wala kasi si ES, Mr. Chairman. Marami kasi ako itatanong sana. In aid of legislation na lang din sana. Andito na ako physically present na Administrator Serafica, a former admin. Magtulungan tayo on the legislative part, no? Saka na muna yung accountability part, no? Yung composition ng SRA. Do you think do you recommend after having spent around 4 years ka as administrator in more or less?
Since 2017.
So mga 5 years pa nga. So do you recommend that we expand the membership to represent the different stakeholders in the sugar industry?
Well, personally, Mr. Chair or Your Honors, it's, basing on EU 18, unless otherwise, there will be very extensive consultation among the stakeholders because the essence of EO18 already represents the industry, the miller sector and the farmer sector. But if you want to expand it to the consumers and the other users, that will be studied carefully and with due consultation with the stakeholders, I suppose, Your Honors.
Sige, sir. Sige, sir. Thank you for your answer. Precisely, yung concept nyo pala talaga ng stakeholders, very, very narrow, very, very limited. I think it's time to expand the concept of stakeholders. And I would like to believe, kaya kami nag-hearing dito ngayon, is because reklamo ang consumers sa presyo nga ng sugar. So, from, wala akong normal price what is the normal price before the issue? Normal price, then 110 pesos per kilo. So, naging at the forefront ngayon ng issue ng sugar because napakamahal. And then, bumaba at 70 pesos per kilo today. Correct me if I'm wrong, kung sino yung marunong sa, kung alam yung current prices. Hindi dumating yung hindi dumating yung 300,000 metric tons ng SO4 And yet, napababa ang presyo from 110 to 70. Can somebody explain? What happened to the emergency? Na supposed to be emergency, pag sinabi emergency, kung hindi natuloy SO4, yung 110 should have even gone up, pero bumaba. So, yes, sir. Mr. Lobregat will give us the answer.
Good afternoon, Mr. Senator. I was in the Malacanang meeting when there was a voluntary offer to make available 1.5 million kilos of refined sugar by URC. I don't know if there were subsequent offers also to make additional sugar available. I think the Victoria's Milling has also made offers to bring down the retail price of refined sugar. URC does have retail outlets. They have supermarkets. I don't think Victoria's has its own supermarkets. But I told them the Philippines consumes about 180,000 tons a month. Okay. If you put in 1,500,000 kilos, that sounds like a lot. But if you convert the 180,000 tons a month, that is 180 million kilos. So you tell me if 1.5 million is going to make a dent when the requirement is 180 million kilos. I mean, I'm not belittling their donation or offer, right? But this is why I don't know how many supermarkets are selling at 70 pesos.
Correct, correct, sir. Kaya nga ganito, if you go back to the basic economics principle of supply and demand, so are you telling this committee that the 70 pesos per kilo is an artificial price?
Yes.
That's your. So somebody is absorbing a loss when it sells at 70 pesos per kilo.
Not necessarily a loss, an opportunity to make more money.
Yun, precisely, an opportunity to make more money. So at 110 pesos per kilo, who is having this opportunity to make a lot of money?
Mr. Senator, I do not want to accuse.
Importer.
Senator Villar, would you like to interject formally?
I just want, yes. I just want to manifest that during the time of when we wrote the RTL, the price of rice rose to 60 pesos per kilo. And then we wrote the RTL, we liberalized the importation of rice. It has never risen to 60 pesos per kilo. Kasi noon, may exclusive right na mag-import ang NFA. And yung nabibigay niyang mga importer, kinokontrol ang presyo. May kartel. So, nung i-liberalize, hindi na nakontrol ng NFA. Ngayon, misikailan hindi na tumaas ang presyo ng bigas more than 40 pesos per kilo. Sometimes, kahit ka magpa-import, pag nakartel yung supply, tataas ang presyo. Why will the prices go up more than 70 pesos when it's cheaper to import? And the cost of sugar in the Philippines, as they said, is something like 52 pesos. Baka tataas ng 100? Mas mura pa yung imported na sugar. Di may nagko-control ng supply. So, yun ang problema natin. That when we allow exclusive to importers, they control the supply and they raise the price. Hindi talaga because mas mahal ang sugar, but because nako-control yung supply. That's what happened to rice. O kaya tinanggal namin yung exclusive right of NFA to allow importation. Nung tinanggal yun sa NFA, nawala na yung pagtaas ng bigas Ngayon, hanggang 40 na lang ang bigas Noon, nag-60 noong 2018 Kaya nag-liberalize tayo ng importation of rice.
Thank you, ma'am. So for my education, if our resource persons can comment on my question.
Mr. Senator, I just want to make a statement that the sugar industry is the most organized agricultural product in the country. We did not want these high prices, and this is why we were pushing for importation when we saw that there was a need to balance the supply and demand requirement. But there were many things that prevented this. That was explained very clearly in my congressional presentation, which I think we gave, it's on YouTube, but we also gave this to the Senate. It's a very short explanation, very simple to understand. And I called it the perfect storm. We got hit by a storm which paralyzed Negros momentarily, but it did have lingering effects on refined sugar production. Then an importation program was delayed. Sugar order number 3 was delayed by a TRO. The elections happened. There was paralysis in the government for a while. I mean, paralysis in quotation until the new administration took over. And this is why prices were alarmingly high. And we were trying to stop this by bringing an importation program. We were saying from the very beginning, there is going to be a big deficit. And if it's not corrected, then prices are just going to go up, because when there is a big demand and there's a very small supply, if I have 5 pieces of sugar to sell and one starts bidding, a buyer starts outbidding the other, what am I going to do? Right? I'll sell it to the highest bidder. Here, I have one. Who wants it?
That's correct. Okay, pero yun lang, an observation that even without SO4, we are still surviving the sugar emergency situation, and the price of sugar accessible before at 110 pesos per kilo is now accessible at 70 pesos per kilo. Medyo mapapakamot tayo ng ulo doon actually, unless you're telling me that this is a very artificial situation. But the information I get is that kahit yung nagbebenta ngayon ng 70 pesos per kilo ay hindi nag-aabono kung monti lang ang kanyang kita. So that means before, grabe pala ang pagpiga sa ating mga consumer at buyers at 110 pesos per kilo. Ngayon, sa sagot ni Senator Cynthia Villar na importers ang malaking kinikita, that's why importante siguro yung listahan unless na-submit na from the SRA on who are these privileged few who can actually import sugar because of permits and licenses issued by the SRA. Kasi kung if we look at them as a group, kunyari, ilan lang po yan, kunyari 30 or 50 sila, these are the people who have practically the monopoly of importing sugar. So may I get some, sino na ba ngayon ang new SRA administrator? Kasi tanong tayo ng tanong kay Engineer Serapica.
Apparently, all the new appointees got infected with COVID.
Andito naman si Deputy, sir. Sige, si
They
Deputy
are
na lang.
here, but they're virtually present, except for one. So, Deputy?
Si Deputy na, mas matagal na rin siya.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Ilan, ano lang, kung paulit-ulit na itong tanong, just forgive me, pero ilan po yung ating importers?
So it would depend on the importation program. Now in SO3, I think there are 30 and 60 for butters and premium. But this representation, sir, would like to, in representation also the new members of the Sugar Board by virtue of an authority to attend this hearing, I shall furnish this committee, sir, of the list of importers as requested, sir.
Pero walang 100 yan, ano? On a per sugar importation plan, walang 100 yan, ano? Wala, no?
None, sir.
So it's a privileged few. And paulit-ulit ang mga pangalan yan, siguro.
We will verify, sir.
Di mo pa napansin? Ilang years ka na sa SRA?
I mean 8 years, sir, but the importation, the importation, sir, because there is a regular importation and there is what we call the regular importation for custom-bodied warehouse, sir. It's a separate program aside from the regular importation.
Ulit-ulit, there's a regular importation.
On CBW, sir, and food manufacturers.
Ilang metric tons yun? Regular.
It would depend, sir, on their allocation, but I think they're 60 to 70,000 metric tons, sir, in a year.
And then what is the other, how do you call the other kind of importation?
That's the importation, sir, as the board would determine the gap or the deficit in the supply.
That is in the sugar orders naman?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, pero siyempre, may idea ka na yung sino yung nabigyan ng license sa regular importation at saka sa sugar order importations, common names.
Yes, sir. We shall provide, sir, this committee with the names.
Hindi ko pa nakikita, pero alam mo, common names. Siyempre, because they develop expertise dun sa negosyo. Negosyo yan eh.
Yes, sir.
So we need to know, Mr. Chairman, so we thank Attorney Tihida for his commitment to submit to the committee names of the corporations, and of course, when they apply, they also revealed the individuals or the personalities behind the corporations, the human beings ba, di ba? So pakibigay na rin sa amin yung basic information, sino yung, hindi lang yung korporasyon, but sino yung people behind this.
Well, as this committee would intend, sir, the documents will be readily be made available.
Thank you very much. Kasi these are the privileged few eh. Practically, monopoly power yan sila, mga not more than 60 lang, 60 entities lang eh. Yes. So, yun lang po. Nagpapanik kasi ako, Mr. Chairman, sa countdown natin. So, yung in aid of legislation sana, ayusin natin itong SRA kasi it's worth saving. At saka yung expertise na na-develop na ito eh. At saka the regulation, I think the commodity, the trading in sugar still needs to be regulated or highly regulated unless there is a contrary opinion from our resource persons. Is there any from our resource persons that we need to release sugar from this regulation? Wala. But Attorney Santos, why you were raising your hand pala? A different topic? Yes, sir.
Regarding the Senate Minority Leader's observation earlier regarding the need to examine the sugar board, the composition of the sugar board, I'd just like to make the observation that I think that SRA is unique in the sense that first, the number of members of the sugar board is even number. There are 4. Usually it's odd number. 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. And secondly, even in private sector, in ordinary corporations, the minimum number of board of directors is 5 and the maximum is 15. Unlike in the sugar board, they only have 4. So that is for the consideration of the...
Thank you, sir. Actually, yung aming pinag-iisipan ng amendment is we will enlarge the representation in the board and make it an odd number. So thank you for that. Marami pa sana tayong tanong, pero kay ES, tsaka, well, anyway, Mr. Chairman. Ano?
Yes, I have some quick administrative matters with the permission. One, we have here in our midst a certain John Paul Antes. 2 days to may hearings na siya dito. Can you be here so that we can expedite this? You have taken your oath. Can you be seated? Less than 2 minutes lang to. Mr. John Paul Antes, you have executed a sworn statement before. Can that be flashed on the screen? You are Mr. John Paul Antes. You are a senior sugar production and regulation officer. Yes, nag-oath ka na? Not yet.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Oh, administer the oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
So there is flashed on the screen a document entitled Sworn Statement. Do you recognize this?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sa'yo ba yan?
Yes, my sworn statement.
Ikaw ang gumawa niyan?
Yes, sir. Ako, sir, ang personally gumawa.
Freely, voluntarily?
Freely and voluntarily, Your Honor.
So what about the contents? Tungkol saan ba yan? Ano natatandaan mo dyan sa ginawa mong sworn statement na yan? Dated August ano ba to? August 10 o August 19, 2022.
It's about, sir, na I'm assigned or I have additional assignment to the Office of the Sugar Board Secretary, aside from being the Senior Sugar Production and Regulation Officer.
So the sworn statement is about your functions. Medyo maliit dito kaya hindi nababasa ng iba. Gusto ko na lang tapusin ito para tapos na rin yung presence mo kasi ilang araw ka na nandito. So nakalagay dito yung mga functions mo, additional assignments by virtue of Special Order number 38. And apparently, ikaw ang tiga-ikot ng mga pipirmahan, including SO4. Ikaw yung tiga-referendum, ibig ko sabihin. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Sa nakita mo dito, itong affidavit mo, sworn statement, it has not been changed or modified at all. That's the same, right?
Yes, sir.
As you executed it. So, dito sa trabaho mo, you were the one who routed the draft SO number 4. Sa SO number 3, ikaw din ba yun? Ikaw tiga-ikot talaga ng ganito?
Yes, sir. But regarding the mga board resolutions.
So, ikaw ang pinagkakatiwalaan. Part of your sworn statement would indicate that upon receipt, and I quote, upon receipt of the proposed agenda item, I was instructed by then SRA administrator. Sino yon? Who is that SRA administrator?
Your Honor, the former administrator.
Serafica, who is here present, to facilitate within the day the referendum on the loan agenda. So, there is an urgency here within the day, quote unquote. So, minadali ka. Sinabihan ka ba, tapusin mo na to bata para mamayang hapon, pirmado na to. When was this? August 8? Or August 9?
August 8, sir.
August 8. So, bago-bago lang. Ilang araw pa lang nakakalipas. So, ginawa mo to within the day.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So, yung narinig mo yung mga tanong ko kay Attorney Beltran, yung mga tanong ko dun sa iba na ikaw pala yung route nito, are you authorized to affix electronic signatures?
Your Honor, hindi po ako yung nag-affix ng signature po nila. I emailed them informing, requesting for their e-signature. May sarili po sila mga board staff, Your Honor.
And then if you get the concurrence, you affix the e-signature in coordination with the staff.
Sir, wala po, sir. For the record, sir, wala po akong ina-affix na e-signature. I'm not authorized. I'm just email them the draft board resolutions, and upon their approval, their board staff will be the one who are going to affix their e-signatures.
Again, you were the one vital in securing all the signatures through the urging of then Administrator Serafica. That's my last question. Tama ba yan?
Yes, sir, because I'm the one who emailed the
Yeah.
former board
So
members.
you affirm the contents again of the sworn statement.
Yes, sir, I'm affirming my sworn
So,
statement.
Mr. Secretary, can you make this part of the exhibits coming from the SRA? And for administrative purposes, let's do it this way. For all the exhibits coming from SRA, we mark it A-1 consecutively. For all exhibits emanating from other government offices, including the Office of the Executive Secretary, the PITC, etc., we mark it B-1 consecutively. For all exhibits coming from the private sector, including the Philippine Sugar Millers, other associations, etc., we mark it C-1 consecutively. Comsec, can you do that?
Yes, Your Honor, we will do that.
I think, Mr. Antes, I'm done with you unless my colleague, the Honorable Minority Leader, has some other questions concerning your sworn statement. So, Senator Pimentel, no questions for this witness. You are excused. Thank you, Mr. Antes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I think I will now go, with the permission of the Honorable Minority Leader, I will go to two sugar importers. San Fernando Eric Commercial Inc. Is the representative here? San Fernando Commercial Inc. Kanina nag-present yan, Comsec? Is San Fernando Commercial Inc. present? Ito yung Commissioner, Commissioner of Customs. Isa to sa mga binisita nyo, San Fernando Commercial Inc. San Fernando Eric Commercial Inc. Saan to located?
Your Honor, let me check my notes, Your Honor.
Before you answer, is Delmax Corporation likewise present in this room? Can they be invited next hearing? Commissioner, are you familiar with Delmax Corporation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Kailan nyo po ito binisita?
Let me check my records, Your Honor. I do not have the.
So the reason why I am asking this, for the record, and I asked this 2 hours ago, Mr. Commissioner. Ang tanong ko sa iyo kanina, pag nag-import ba, at alam nyo yung mga papeles nito, dadaan lahat sa inyo to, pag halimbawa po ba ang in-import, ang allowable importation quota is 5,000, tapos yung in-import ay 7,000, how do you treat the excess importation of 2,000? If that's in metric tons, if that's in sugar, or whatever item, if it's no longer allowed? Is that smuggled? Is that confiscatable? Is that subject to seizure?
Yes.
Or what? Anong tawag po doon?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you educate
excess,
this committee? Can you edify us?
the excess of the MAV, Your Honor, is already unauthorized, Your Honor.
Refer to maximum allowable.
The minimum access volume, Your Honor.
Can you proceed before I interrupt?
Anything in excess of the MAV, Your Honor, is already unauthorized, Your Honor.
What will happen to the excess of the unauthorized?
It will be confiscated, Your Honor.
And how is it treated? Is it transferred to a separate bonded warehouse? Is it sold through public auction? Is it since this is, if it involves a perishable item, is it subject to sale or what happens?
It is subject to auction, Your Honor.
So the reason why I stated that is based on our records. Can you flash that on the screen? The released items coming from SRA. Pasensya ka na, Commissioner. Wala yung mga ibang colleagues ko rito meeting sa DFA. So I have to take the cudgels for all of them, except for the minority leader. So you look at this. San Fernando Area Commercial, Inc., which we will be inviting next hearing, was able to import 19,000 to 177,000 blah plus. The same is true with Delmax Corporation, and we're referring to sugar, 16,000, 399,600, when the maximum allowable importation for an industrial sugar trader should just be 15,000 metric tons. So meron tayo kagad excess na 14,000. My mathematics colleague is here. Sobra, kahit sa Delmax, sobra ng 1,600. What happened to this? You have the dates, you have the numbers, may dates yan, and you have the figures. Saan napunta yung excess nitong asukal na ito? Ito ba ay binenta? Ito ba ay sinira? Ito ba ay pinakain sa langgam? Saan ito napunta?
Sir, we have to check their MAV based on our data on hand, sir. If they have already reached their allocation, sir.
Yours came from the SRA. So I can also ask Administrator Serafica, this happened during your term. Ano po ang... Ayan po yung mga importer. Ayan din yung mga sugar type. Administrator Serafica, ano po ang... Bakit ito sobra? Di ba ang kanilang pwede lang i-import ay 15,000 metric tons? Bakit si Delmax ay 16,000 na plus si San Fernando ay 19? At ito pong dalawang ito, Commissioner, going back to you, ay kasama dun sa mga na-bisita nyo. Kamakailan lang. Kanina ka, pasensya na, kanina ka pa tumitingin sa records nyo. Siguro, pinakamatagal niyan 2 weeks ago. So, tanong ko si Administrator Serafica, bakit po lumampas ito? Sa halip na 15,000 ay 19,000 na. Ano pong dahilan yan?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I think I leave it to the Deputy Administrator for the latest figures.
Deputy Administrator, bakit po sumobra? Kasi alam naman natin na may cap. Merong hanggang doon lang. Tapos sumobra siya.
Yes, Your Honor. We may inquire, Your Honor, if this is 19,000 metric tons. 19,000 metric tons.
19,000 metric tons.
In total, okay. Your Honor,
Yes, but the limit, the maximum, is just 15,000 metric tons.
Yeah, it could happen, Your Honor, Mr. Chair, that these importers could import for itself or for another industrial, if that is the case. Because upon checking with our licensing and monitoring division, Your Honor, there is no excess of the allocated volume for these individual importers. So it could be that one of these two importers have their own, or the two have their own allocation for themselves, then they also imported in the name of the industrial, which was allowed under Sugar Order Number 3.
So how will Bureau of Customs determine which is which if it is contained in just one bill of lading? If it is contained in one importation document? Paano makikita ni Bureau of Customs? Kasi sabi niya kanina, nakarating na kami sa auction, nakarating na kami sa confiscation, seizure. Paano niya madidetermine yung these are all the same? Sugar ito. Hindi naman to gaya ng other materials na sapatos. O iba yung sapatos, iba yung damit. They all, they can be commingled, they are perishable. So how will Bureau of Customs, except for a shipping document, which probably might contain the entire, this is one shipping transaction, 19,277. Hindi ito separate na 15,000 yung isa, ganon. So, for administrative efficiency, how will the Bureau of Customs determine that? How will the Bureau of Customs likewise pursue that in terms of the appropriate fees, charges, wharfage fees, venue, taxes, etc., etc.? Di ba magulo?
Yes, Your Honor. The process would be, sir, that when these sugar are set to arrive these are being cleared by the Sugar Regulatory Administration, and we furnish the Bureau of Customs a copy of that clearance for release of imported goods.
That is related to the question previously of my, I forgot the name, either Senator Tulfo or Senator JB and Senator Pimentel, that you should furnish this committee with a list, 60 ang sinabi ni Senator Pimentel, of all duly registered sugar traders. So malalaman natin yun ilan yung na-import na nila. Baka sumobra na. You're just saying from your recollection, but we're looking at what is provided for the MAB. We're looking at the records coming from your office. Mukhang sobra. Pag tiningnan pa natin yung iba, baka meron ding sumobra. Kaya, hindi kaya pwedeng lumabas na sa dinami-dami ng na-import. Bakit nagtatanong yung iba nating mga consumer, meron pa rin tayong shortage. Ito na nga, sobra na nga ito. Ba't nagkulang pa? Diba? Tingnan mo, 15,000, naging 19,000 siya. Sobra na yung inangkat niya, and yet, we feel the pinch, quote-unquote, of a shortage. Kaya balik ulit dun sa shortage. Is there a shortage? Pero ito, sobra Sobra yung, sa inyo galing yan hindi sa amin yan Sumobra yung na-import. Ganon din siguro yung nangyari sa Subic, na hindi pa na ibababa sa, Commissioner, hindi pa na ibababa sa barko?
Not
Hindi
yet, Your Honor.
Hindi pa na ilalagay sa warehouse yun.
Not yet, Your Honor.
Tatama na naman ng bagyo, baka ma-apektuhan pa yun. So, how do we reconcile all of these figures na in excess? Sabi niyo, baka meron pang, can you provide this committee during the next hearing the latest and most accurate figure so that we can all reconcile all of this? Baka, halimbawa, baka yung how much sugar order 3? 200,000?
200,000 metric tons refined sugar, Your Honor.
Ilan na?
200,000 refined sugar.
Pag in-add natin, baka naging 250 na yon, di ba? Baka sumobra na. And yet, merong kulang. Mr. Senator Pimentel, I am really at a loss. You are more proficient in mathematics, but my little experience with algebra would let me wander in uncharted space. So, salamat, Mr. Deputy Administrator, but for the next hearing, provide us with more accurate figures as well as the list of all duly registered industrial sugar traders. We expect that from you. And then the same is true with the good commissioner. Ilan na yung na-zist, ilan na yung na-auction, ilan na yung na-confiscate, ilan na yung na-meted out ng fine. Senator Pimentel, you have something
Yes,
to
Your
say?
Honor.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Siguro dadaanan lang namin ng staff ko to kasi we have to get the domestic production of sugar. Then we call that raw sugar, di ba? Tama ba yun? Correct my terms please nodding na lang, through nodding. I'm just looking at Engineer Serapica kasi he's considered expert na yan. And from the domestic production would come our domestic production of refined sugar. Di ba? Yun. Domestic. Doon siya magagaling. Correct or not correct? Mr. Serapica?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Correct, di ba? Okay, so, and then, so yun yung ating total Philippine domestic production na. Yun. Hindi lalampas si production of refined sugar sa production of raw sugar. Tama? Logical? Okay, so, okay, tapos you have this 175,000 metric tons monthly demand for raw. Is that raw? Raw. And then 85,000 metric tons for monthly for refined is the demand. Yan. Okay. So, babanggain lang natin yan. That would now be our need to import. Dalawang categories pa rin. Pwede pa, tama, our importation is dalawang categories pa rin, of raw and also of refined. Is that correct, Engineer Serapica?
Yes po.
Sige.
Yes, Your Honor.
So yon. And then, as I understand it, you put an allowance? So it's not purely ima-minus lang, right? Domestic demand, annual, i-annualize ko lang annualized domestic demand for the two categories minus annualized domestic production would be our importation plan. But do you add something there as parang buffer stock?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's the formula for that buffer stock?
It boils down to the carryover of the preceding crop year. In this case, the carryover, meaning the ending balance of the last crop year, will be carried over to the new season. So if we take a look on the first 3 months, usually we do not get enough raw production because the mills are just starting to build up the raws. So it's critical in this case of putting a buffer stock. The comfortable buffer stock is between 200 to 250,000 metric tons.
Oo nga. So yun na nga. So you have a theoretically, yan yung nasa mind ninyo. And then you look at the carryover, kunyari, lagyan natin sa 100 lang yung carryover. So yung balance, 250,000 metric tons minus 100,000 metric tons sa carryover, that's 150,000 metric tons. You add that to the importation plan. That
Yes.
would now be the annualized importation plan for the next crop year. Tama? As
Yes
I
po.
understand it.
Yes.
Okay. Ito lang yung concern ko eh. Yung carryover natin, every crop year is a combination of domestic production and imported sugar. Is that correct, Mr. Ravaka?
Yes, although it is segregated, what is domestically produced and the importation, but still, at the end of the day, that will be part of the inventory for the entire, let's say, refined sugar in this case.
Hindi, ang aking kasing concern nga, ang ating point is, kulang na nga si domestic production sa domestic demand. Kulang na yun, di ba? Bakit hindi na, yun lang concern, bakit hindi na natin inuubos? Dapat ubusin si domestic production of both raw and refined. Dapat zero nga carry over dun eh. Sa column na yun on domestic, zero yun. Because that's the only reason you're importing kasi ubus si domestic eh. You need the help of foreign countries to satisfy the demand because domestic cannot satisfy domestic demand. Domestic production cannot satisfy domestic demand. So sana ganon, na inuubos muna natin ang domestic supply. Dapat benta lahat yan. I mean, is there something wrong with that kind of theory or theoretical approach?
Your Honor, it needs planning and anticipation because it's not that easy or quick to bring in imported sugar. Minimum is 3 weeks to 4 weeks to bring in imported sugar, considering all the logistical and the challenges within the Asian sugar-producing countries, Your Honor.
Kaya nga, all the more, dapat ubos si domestic supply. Doon lang ako nagtataka eh. I saw your mga crop year reports, meron kayong carry over na domestic supply. I mean, I find it illogical that there is we say from the very start, our assumption is domestic demand far exceeds domestic production or domestic supply. And yet, at the end of a crop year, we have a carryover report coming from domestic supply. What is the explanation there? Bakit hindi ubos? Bakit hindi naubos si domestic supply? Engineer Serapika, Attorney Tejida, yung mga 5 years and above na sa SRA, help me understand. Obrigado. Sige.
Recognize, Mr. Lobregat.
Yes,
You
the
will
private sector.
answer on behalf of the private sector.
Private sector, yes.
Not on behalf of the SRA.
Not in the SRA. I answer on behalf of my personal knowledge. In the months of September, October, November, this is only when the milling season starts, right? The production, for example, and this year they started in August, 1 month earlier, which is not ideal.
Sir Lobregat, before you proceed,
Yes.
the indulgence of Senator Pimentel, I'd like to excuse the lady from PITC. I think you have a meeting. The committee excuses you right now.
Sure, thank you. Like I said, in the beginning of the year, we need that buffer stock to carry us over into September, October, November, because the production is very low. They started this year, August. For the first 3 weeks of August, the production has only been 10,000 tons, right? When if let's assume that the average requirement is about 170, 180, you can see how big a deficit that is. In September, it goes up. We don't know, depending on the weather, but it's usually still rainy. And October and November, more or less, it's about even, but that's why it's important to have a carryover. And this was foreseen. That is why the necessity of an importation to make sure that there was a buffer stock. This is different from the pipeline. The buffer stock, of course, is what usually comes from mills and refineries, what they still have for sale, right? But that is why it is necessary to maintain that buffer stock, because in the first few months of the new crop, the production is not as high as in later months when you have the peak of production, because later, during the peak, you can hit 400,000 tons in 1 month. So I hope that explains why it's important to have a buffer stock. It's like if you had a car, you're not going to make it run out of gas and then walk to the gas station. I suppose
Yes, sir.
it's about
Ito lang, hindi natin pinag-usapan yung buffer stock. Actually, meron talagang buffer stock. But the buffer stock should be composed of already imported sugar. Kasi kung domestic, yun, ubos dapat yun eh. Yun na yung tanong ko eh. Nakasegregate kasi. Am I right, Engineer Serapica, sa data ninyo, nakasegregate yung carryover eh. Domestic and then imported. Ang question ko, how come sa carryover and the may laman si domestic? So, sa crop year, hindi na ubos si domestic. When it's supposed to be, ubos siya dahil domestic production cannot satisfy domestic demand. Can I get the SRAs, yung mga more than 5 years na si SRA? Kasi you prepare the reports eh. Unless you've not seen the table that we have examined, which came from the SRA presentation.
In this case, the actual production is very much dependent, as explained earlier by Mr. Lubrigat. We are weather dependent. Like, for example, he mentioned that there are some mills who started, instead of starting September, they opted to start August, hoping that there will be more sugar. But apparently, when you start as early than usual, it's either you have leftover canes, large canes, or young canes. So definitely, the recovery is not that high. So if we say that milling has started, but the recovery rate is not there yet, what is standard in a bags per ton cane of sugar. Now, as we progress in our milling season, the recovery rate will improve, as the farmers will be milling matured canes and better quality canes. So hence, the production level is still very critical in the first 3 months of the start of the crop year.
Sige, sir. At any rate, we will just go over the papers. Parang hindi tayo nagkakaintindihan eh. Pero anyway, I was handed documents of a case number MPDC 2022-0001. So nakasuhan pa pala kayo, Yusek Sebastian, Admin Serapica, Attorney Beltran, and Mr. Valderrama. Kinasuhan pa pala kayo because of SO4. So balik nga ako sa point ko kanina. Ang laki ng implication eh. How come hindi kayo nagtiyaga to get the official reaction or position of the President himself as Acting Secretary of Agriculture and Chairman of the Board of SRA? You can, sabi nyo, you send text messages. How about a personal visit to the ES every day if it is that important? Ang laki ng implications, sir. Ako nung binabasa ko yung basic facts eh. Nung you took the risk na ma-reverse kayo. Nung re-reverse kayo, disapproved, tawag-tawag, do not take it down sa website, call UP Law Center, do not publish, and then you face a case. So the consequences are too grave for you not to have, gotten the prior approval and consent of your chairman. So balik ako sa question ko, why did you do it? Yes, Yusek Sebastian, you're still undersecretary ngayon, di ba? Because your resignation has not been accepted?
That's my understanding now,
Correct. Okay.
Your Honor. But when Secretary Trixie announced that I've resigned, I thought it was already accepted at that time, Your Honor.
Sige. Okay, anyway, hindi ka pa rin sure. Kasi sir, ganito tingnan mo, sir, bago kayo sumagot all for you, four of you. Ang bigat nung ang bigat kasi ng implication eh, ang cost sa inyo, ang bigat eh. I mean, tignan mo to sir, from the executive secretary, part of his testimony before this committee. I confront, on August 23, 2022, I confronted Yusek Leo Sebastian and asked him why he did such a thing behind the President's back without the President's knowledge, and in an unfair and dishonorable way. Grabe po ang pag-disown actually sa SO4. So, I mean, did you not even entertain this scenario na ganyan kagrabe ang pag-disown sa SO4? Yes, Yusek Sebastian.
Yes, Your Honor. You must remember that I was issued a memorandum July 15, 2022, Your Honor. So that gave me the authority to sit in the SRA board as ex officio. And at the same time, I was also authorized to sign various documents, Your Honor. And even in that memo, there is a provision there that all our actions are considered regular unless reprobated or disapproved by the President, Your Honor. And then, with the situation that's as also explained by Mr. Lobregat here on the sugar supply situation during that time, Your Honor, you can just imagine if you are sitting in the Department of Agriculture and the pressure is there for you to act. And in our discussion with the President, he also recognized that there's a need to take fast actions. We need to act fast. That was from the President, Your Honor, that to find some solution to this sugar supply problem. So, for example, Your Honor, the reclassification was prioritized, but the reclassification is just from reserve to domestic use. Then after that, he also asked Administrator Serapica to start preparing the sugar importation plan or program, Your Honor. So there are events. The consultation was also in the process during that time. Much delayed as what Mr. Lobregat has been saying here. It was supposed to be even after the election, but it was already delayed. So all these things are pressuring. The consultation was going on. Then the consultation result came up. And this was discussed, Your Honor, by Administrator Serapica during their meeting with Board Member Balderrama and the President and ES. And as also mentioned by Board Member Beltran, he was not able to join, but he also
Sir.
had some of those discussions. So all these compounding circumstances, Your Honor, are I'm also considering that, Your Honor, when all these things came finally, that we need to act and probably do and did the referendum, Your Honor.
Yes, sir. Okay yun. Okay lang yun kasi act fast. So you had a plan and then you had a draft SO. You signed the draft SO. Pwede nyo hold in abeyance yun eh. Pagka binigyan na kayo sana ng clearance. Ako nalulungkot lang po ako sa developments for you, no? Sa inyong apat, actually, na kinasuhan pa kayo. Imagine mo yun. I mean, the sugar order number 4 could be signed and ready to be released upon approval of the President. You sought the approval of the President. Hindi mo lang pinurso eh. Hindi mo lang pinurso text, and then hindi sinagot yung text. Tatanong natin kay ES yun, bakit hindi niya sinagot yung text? Hindi nyo lang po talaga pinurso and then ginawa nyo ng official yung SO4 by making it, publicizing it. Releasing it to the public. Doon lang po ako talaga nagtataka kasi ang balik sa inyo napakabigat eh. I mean, if you heard the speech of the Senate President, meron pang allegation eh nang hindi ka nais-nais eh. Kaya nga sabi ko nga you should welcome actually this hearing for a chance because this will give you the chance to clear your names. Yun po ang nangyari. Ang bigat, hindi ko talaga maintindihan, sir eh. But alam nyo, Yusek Sebastian, na mabigat ang implication ng SO4. Because you sought nga the end of the President, but you did not follow through.
Yes, Sir Rodor. That's why when I reported the result of the referendum to him and he disapproved it, I also immediately informed Administrator Serapica to recall.
Pero official na po eh.
Yes, sir.
Ano lang po yun, you were just remedying the situation, but you officially released it now as your decision, as your resolution. Kasi pagbasa ko, nasa UP Law Center na nga for publication as an administrative ruling yun or admissive issuance eh.
It was recalled, Your Honor.
Yes, I know, but ando na. So, from your point of view, yun na, go na. So, that is the unfortunate incident, and that's why we are here, and you're facing cases, and the denunciation of your acts is so painful, so hurtful, yung mga words na ginagamit. So please, this is your chance. I don't know how many hearings pa po tayo. All the four of you, we'd like to hear from you yung decision-making process. Ano ba yung signals? That's the word now used by the Yusek Sebastian. Ano ba yung signals na binigay sa inyo? Yung mga ganon. Kasi actually ako naano ko sa inyo, naawa ko sa inyo dahil well, I don't know if this is we can charge this to birth pains ng new administration na konting hindi maganda ang inyong coordination. Pero nangyari na po ito, no? And this is now going to be a blot on your service to the government. But just defend yourself and take the opportunity while hearing pa po itong committee ito before we make the committee report. Give us your version and defend yourselves from these grave allegations. Well, sana kung dito si ES, tatanungin ko nga yung July 15 memorandum. Ano ba kasi, that was specifically addressed to you, Yusek Sebastian. That's only for you. So, interpret natin yung document na yon when they were drafting it, si ES. Ano ba yung nasa mind din niya? Ano nasa isip niya? Pero offhand, ako kasi, I mean, if I were given that July 15 memorandum, but the subject matter is as grave as this SO number 4, I think I would really have gotten the prior express approval of the President. You may have signed some internal memo, some reorganization of the DA without getting the express approval of the President. Iba po yun. That's on a different level than compared to SO number 4. Any reaction from you, Sec. Sebastian?
Your Honor, I was just, as I said a while ago, I was operating on that, based on that memo on July 15, 2022, Your Honor. And with good intent, I executed, I signed that SO, Your Honor. But only after also, remember, Your Honor, it's a board resolution. It's not my own decision. There were already 3 board members who voted. And to make that resolution effective, it has to be a majority of the members of the board, not just one person, Your Honor. So I could not have approved it myself alone. So beyond the process going through several steps before we went to the board, it is also a board majority that was already presented, Your Honor.
Oo nga, pero you could not argue that way sa principal mo. Di ba? You answer for your own signature. Ano, so sa principal mo, sir, nasway ako nung 3 eh. Ano, so, hindi dapat gano'n.
No, I was also convinced, Your Honor, by the data that was presented, as I have mentioned.
Kaya I know. You convinced ka nga, pumirma ka nga eh.
Yes, Your Honor.
You could have gotten the consent before signing. You could have gotten the consent after signing if you had made the signed SO number 4 as ano muna, as unofficial muna. Ganun sana. You could have gotten it. But at any rate, ito lang din isa ko na yung observation, Mr. Chairman, yung mga sagot nila, marami akong narinig na sagot na akala namin inapprove na ni President Marcos, kaya pirma na rin kami. Meron din tayong matinanong sa online. Ang information sa amin kasi, approved na yung 300,000 metric tons, kaya nag-submit din kami ng favorable recommendation. Tapos anong sabihin nung nalaman na hindi approve? Biglang bago ihip ng hangin. Sana yung SRA or lahat ng mga collegial bodies na binubuo ng gobyerno, precisely forum yan eh. Forum or a venue where you can express a contrary point of view or other points of view or other opinions. Diba? Then welcome po ang ano dyan. Welcome po dyan ang dissenting opinion. Welcome po dyan ang I disagree, I dissent. Welcome po dyan. Hindi dapat yung attitude natin na I approve. Paano pala kung the figures lead you to a different conclusion? Diba? Express your different conclusion, your different position. Yun po sana, narinig ko lang sa first hearing natin na ganun yung mga reasoning nila. Medyo nasisira ang collegiate nature of the body, nasisira ang purpose ng consultation of the stakeholders. Sira kasi sasabihin ng stakeholders, ang pagkasabi sa amin, gusto na ng presidente, kaya pabor na rin kami. So, sayang. I mean, what is the purpose of consulting stakeholders? Precisely, para makapagsabi nga sila ng what is the true situation. Oh. So, okay, so let us, a lesson na lang ito for everybody. Ulitin ko, I'm sad for the 4 of you. You can defend yourselves in the other fora, but take advantage while we have this hearing to also defend yourselves and let your decision-making process be known to the members of this committee so that we can really understand your point of view. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Minority Leader. I think we have to attend to Senate plenary, and we're now nearing the end, perhaps reaching the light at the end of the tunnel. We'll still have a hearing. The committee secretary is directed to invite those who fail to attend today, principally those coming from the private sector and some the new members of the board and the other resource persons mentioned hours before. So without objection on the part of my colleagues, this Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing is hereby suspended. Thank you to all the resource persons.